All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Mike Lindsley back with you for an ML Sports Take in the 9 minutes with me version here from Rosie's Corner. You know the deal. It's Fish Friday, and of course, you can get your Meatloaf Monday, pizza, wings, pasta, hot and cold subs, and more. Rosie's Corner is the place to be. They'll deliver it to you. You can get it via Grubhub as well, or come and get the curbside pickup, or come in and get the takeout. Keep your distance, wear your mask, do your thing, and it's safe, sanitary, local, and you are supporting that business, which that money in turn goes to families of business owners as well. Rosie's Corner, right in front of the Brewerton Bridge, right off Bartell Road in Brewerton. Make sure you indeed get to Rosie's Corner, an official sponsor of the ML Sports Platter. And I got to tell you, if you're looking to try something here, get the Gold Fever wings, the garlic parm wings, you name it. It's here at Rosie's Corner. Go like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram as well. You know, when you start thinking about here, and I got 9 minutes to go here on the YouTube, Facebook, IGTV side of things, you think about the dynasties in baseball history. You know, you think of the old Philadelphia Athletics and the Ruth Gehrig Yankees of the 20s and the DiMaggio Gehrig 30s era. You go into the 40s, late 40s, DiMaggio, Berra, into the Mantle era, Mantle, Ford, Berra, and then all sorts of great players, Bobby Richardson and Tony Kubek and Elston Howard and Moose Skowron, those Yankee teams winning all the time in the 50s and the early 60s, of course. Then you get into, you know, a little bit of the 70s with those rock and roll A's with Raleigh Fingers and Reggie Jackson, the Big Red Machine, sort of a mini dynasty. But then you go all the way up until the Joe Torre Yankees, and we haven't had a dynasty since that time with the Torre Yankees from 96 until about 2000, 2001. They won 4 World Series in 5 years, and you think about even losing the pennant or losing the World Series, winning the pennant in 2001. They still lost in 7 games, kept going to the playoffs routinely, won the pennant in 03, lost in the World Series to the Marlins. You think about that time, that dynasty, the Joe Torre Yankees with Jeter and Bernie and Mo Rivera and Pettit and Posada and company, and just they won every trade. I know the market was much different. It was a different era back then and all the rest, but we haven't had a true baseball dynasty since that time. That's 20 years that have gone by, and I know a lot of people try to throw out the Houston Astros thing, you know, with them winning the first one in 2017. As it turns out now, we know that they've done a ton of sign stealing and a ton of cheating, but the Houston Astros, you know, think about it. I mean, just recently, this past year, they lose to the Nationals in the World Series, and now they've got this sign-stealing thing basically hanging over their heads as they move forward whenever the heck we get baseball back. You look at the Cubs of 2016, a team that went 108 years not winning a World Series, and all of a sudden, poof, they were kind of labeled as a dynasty in the making with talent like Kyle Schwarber and Chris Bryant and Addison Russell, and the list goes on and on and on. Jorge Soler, you know, and then obviously a long line of pitching between Lester and Hendricks and company and Jake Arrieta back at that time. But we have not had a dynasty since the Torre era. In fact, those Cubs now, they've made a bunch of moves, and Joe Maddon's not even the manager there anymore, which is mind-boggling to me. Now he's with the LA Angels of Anaheim. So it is very crazy when you think about no dynasty in baseball for literally 2 decades. We've had dynasties in other sports. The NFL is set up for you to not have a dynasty more than any other sport out there with a salary cap and all the rest. The NFL draft, you can go worst to first to worst, and yet the Patriots for 20 years have figured it out with Belichick and Brady. Now that era, as we know, with those 2 guys is over. But how about baseball? I mean, does anybody really think about that? How mind-boggling it is to think about, you know, Major League Baseball, 20 full years not having a dynasty, and there are a lot of reasons why. Number one is the revenue sharing. Everybody who has been anti-baseball with, oh, it's only a big market sport, it's for the Red Sox and the Yankees, the haves and the have-nots, the Dodgers, etc. That's not completely true. Those teams can spend as much as they want still, of course, but they're getting taxed heavily, and then it goes into a revenue sharing pool for teams to then share, which has allowed the Minnesota Twins to keep, you know, Joe Mauer, Jose Bautista to stay with the Blue Jays, for a short time Andrew McCutchen to stay with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and several other mid-market teams to be able to keep players for a longer period of time. Revenue sharing has leveled a lot of things out. The other thing that's been added to it is a lot of these big market teams, They haven't made a lot of great decisions, the Yankees included. Now, the Yankees, they haven't won a World Series since 2009, but if you think about a lot of the different decisions, even the last 3 to 5 years with Brian Cashman, you thought he maybe had it figured out, and then they go and they trade for Giancarlo Stanton, a guy they absolutely, positively did not need, and they ignored pitching. They didn't go out and get Justin Verlander. They finally just went and signed Garrett Cole, but they were missing pitching, you know, compared to a lot of the other teams out there, like the Dodgers, like the Nationals, like the Houston Astros. And finally, maybe they figured it out because they had to. They had to go out and get an arm. They haven't developed pitching. The other thing that has really added to a lot of the parity is that you've had just a lot of things come together for certain teams right at once. They have to throw all the eggs in one basket, and then poof, they disappear. Look at the Kansas City Royals. It all came together for them at once, and then they disappear. They went to 2 straight World Series, lost to the Giants, beat the Mets, and then all of a sudden, bang, everything went away. All their contracts were expired. They couldn't use all the money to hang on to all those guys. Now guys like Mike Moustakas are playing elsewhere. Giovanni Ventura, obviously we know the tragedy there. So there are just multiple layers to this thing as to why we haven't had a dynasty in Major League Baseball. A couple other factors are very, very simple. The game is spread out now with more talent because of the revenue sharing, and the Major League Baseball draft has worked. Think about it. It really has worked in terms of the top guys. You think about some of these teams that have won World Series and have been successful. Think about who they've gotten at the top. They were bad for a long time, bad for a long time, bad for a long time, bad for a long time. And then it was poof, poof, poof. Then Washington Nationals, they get Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg. They're in it in postseasons over and over again. All of a sudden, Bryce Harper's a free agent. They let him go. They use that money elsewhere, which was at least a Bryce Harper option, an original product they took. They used the money elsewhere, but Steven Strasburg's still one of their #1 draft picks from the from a couple of years time span. He ends up being a postseason Bulldog. They give him more money, and he's an absolute anchor right now. You'd argue that he is the ace of the Nationals even more than Max Scherzer. Chris Bryant, same deal, big-time draft pick. A lot of these teams that have won have drafted well. You also look at a resurgence of the Boston Red Sox, winning 4 World Series sporadically since 2004. That hadn't happened for, 86 years. They hadn't even won a World Series. Now, apparently, here they are as 4-time winners since 2004. So there's just a plethora of different reasons in terms of the parity, in terms of all the other things that have happened in Major League Baseball to disallow a dynasty for 20 years. And I just think, at least right now in the very near future, maybe moving 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 more years from here, I don't see there being a dynasty anytime soon because of how the game is currently set up. So super interesting to think about, though, that it's been that long, and it's been literally 25 years pretty much since the Yankees started the dynasty with that World Series in 1996. And what I would do to watch one more game with all those guys, with Jeter, Bernie, Mo Rivera saving games, Pettit taking the ball when you need a win in October, etc., Jorge Posada's intensity, and all the role players in between, all the big-time guys, all the players that they won trades on Tino Martinez, Scott Brocious, free agency. You trade Eric Milton for Chuck Knobloch. You trade Jake Westbrook for David Justice. Those certain trades, the Yankees, they get the wild card. They lose to the Mariners in 95. They blow up the roster. Out goes Buck Showalter, in Joe Torre, out Mike Stanley. They've got still kind of a building block thing with culture and character and patience at the plate with Wade Boggs and Paul O'Neill, Gene Michael kind of directing things. Don Mattingly retires. They go and trade for Tino Martinez and Jeff Nelson, stealing them by trading Russ Davis and Sterling Hitchcock. So that dynasty, it was so mind-boggling to think of how dominating they were now. And now you fast forward 20 years, and that dynasty, boy, we might not see that anytime in the very near future. Rosie's Corner, get here. Pizza, pasta, wings, hot and cold subs, and more. It's a proud sponsor of the ML Sports Platter. Today is Fish Friday. Like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram. Rosie's Corner, a proud sponsor of the ML Sports Platter. Here on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, it's 9 Minutes with me, Mike Lindsley. As I always tell you, when they come back, enjoy the games.